As Russian missiles and airstrikes slammed into parts of Ukraine, President Vladimir Putin announced it's launched a special military operation, Russia that is. The offensive began in the early hours of this morning. Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky is telling citizens not to panic despite the attack on the country's military infrastructure. Prime Minister Boris Johnson in the UK says the UK and NATO allies will be supporting Kiev. Our UK correspondent Olly Barratt joins us now for an update. Olly, so this is the news that for a moment it seemed like it was coming, then, it seemed like it wasn't going to happen, as Russia said they were pulling back forces and taking them back to the barracks, and then it just seems to have gone exactly in the opposite direction and escalated quite significantly. Reaction from London in the wake of Russia launching what it's calling a special military operation in Ukraine.
Reaction has been swift from London, and in a way this is the vindication that the UK did not want. British intelligence has been saying for some time now, along with American intelligence, that it was considered by officials here that an invasion was imminent and it could be wide-scale by the Russians. There were some other Western capitals that didn't appear to share that intelligence assessment, but as I say, vindication for the UK and US that they absolutely did not want to see. But now that they have, the reaction has been swift. Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, and Liz Truss, his Foreign Secretary, both getting briefings in the middle of the night and tweeting out statements and releasing statements in the early hours of the morning UK time. Boris Johnson saying he's appalled by the horrific events in Ukraine. He spoke very quickly to the Ukrainian President Zelensky to talk about what Boris Johnson describes as next steps. Boris Johnson saying the UK and our allies will respond decisively. Liz Truss, the UK Foreign Secretary, calling the events appalling, unprovoked. Liz Truss saying we stand with Ukraine and will work with international partners to respond to this terrible act of aggression. And Boris Johnson is chairing an emergency so-called Cobra meeting as we speak to get intelligence briefings to work out from a British perspective what is considered to actually be unfolding inside Ukraine, because it is hard to get an accurate picture of that at the moment. And then the next question for the UK becomes what to do next. Do you roll out further sanctions immediately? And exactly what are those sanctions? Who do you target next? Britain's been saying all along it has sanctions ready to go for this exact eventuality. Boris Johnson will also be taking part in a virtual summit of G7 group of nation leaders later on. There's also an EU leaders summit taking place in Brussels. The diplomacy will be furious. The sanctions are likely to be strengthened and are likely to be strengthened quickly. Whether that is going to make an impact on Vladimir Putin's actions very much remains to be seen.
Is there a sense, Olly, that this is a bit of a difficult one to navigate, in the sense that it's not as easy as saying that a military action will be met by a military response? I mean, we know that in the US, for example, the deployment of troops has been taken off the table. What's that conversation like in the UK? The sanctions, imposition of sanctions, does that appear to be the only lever that they can pull at, really?
That's right. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's been signalling all along as well that he does not intend to send troops into Ukraine. But what the UK has been doing is sending defensive military weapons to the Ukrainians for some time. And Boris Johnson said just yesterday that more would be on the way and more support for the Ukrainian military, but without giving any details about what exactly that would look like. The other military element to the UK's response here is that it has signalled previously that it would be prepared to deploy more British troops in NATO countries in Eastern Europe as part of NATO military alliance deployments. So that is something that we could see either in the coming days or agreed in the coming days, is the deployment of further British troops, not inside Ukraine, but in that Eastern European neighbourhood where some countries now feel more threatened by Russia even than they did just a few days ago.
And Olly, I've seen the conversation, at least on social media, about what the impact of sanctions on Russia would be in terms of the gas supply, for example, in Europe. Is that conversation happening, and those considerations, are they there in the UK?
Absolutely they are, and that was a critical decision from Germany earlier in the week to pause the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, which isn't up and running yet, but which could be up and running if we were in a better position geopolitically. So that and other decisions that might impact energy markets and the trade between countries like the UK and Russia is absolutely part of the, not just calculations here in terms of what might hurt the Russian economy and what might hurt Vladimir Putin's government, but also the other side of that coin, which is that European Union countries and the UK as well are very clear that actions they are taking when it comes to sanctions may well hurt them and their economies too, may well push up the prices of energy even further at a time when we're seeing rising living costs and rising inflation here in the UK and in other European countries. And so populations in Europe are absolutely bracing for the impacts that they will feel because of what is unfolding right now in Ukraine.
All right, Olly, I've got to thank you for this update. Pensive and concerning times at the moment.